What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel, guys. My guy Peter sent me this request, and I thought it was pretty interesting because, there was a point in time in my life, especially, I'll say, pretty much when I graduated high school, entering into college, I worked in not even fast food, I worked at a restaurant. And my first year of college, I was actually a waiter. And when I tell you, as a waiter, if you're a waiter or a waitress, man, it's all about tips. Do people have to tip? They really don't. They're not required to, but most of them, they know if they're served good, you're going to get tipped good, right? But it sucks because most employers, you finna get paid. I think I got paid $2.13, which they probably going to tell us in this video. Got paid like $2.13. So everything, when I went into work, it all was relying on tips, which sucked because you would be there a good, you're only there 5 hours, 6 hours. You're not even there full time. So I don't know why they couldn't pay you $7 to $8. But man, was it different? It was different. So this is the ugly truth about tipping and why you should. Me personally, I tip good because I've been there. I know what it's like. That's why I try to leave a tip. But we finna see. This is very interesting. I had to do this because this is definitely where I can kind of share some experience. So y'all make sure y'all hit that subscribe button, send down those recommendations. Let's jump into it.
Hey, 42 here. Elvis Presley once asked his limo driver, "Do you own this limo or do you work for the company?" The driver responded that he just worked for the company. Elvis replied, "Well, you own it now." The driver's tip from Elvis was the limo. So if you're not a big baller tipping a goddamn limo every time you leave the house, then what the hell is wrong with you? At least that's the way that unnecessarily judgmental waitstaff hope you feel when you leave whatever shreds of disturbing paraphernalia you found at the bottom of your wallet as a tip. But seriously, in North America, tipping feels like an obligation. After finishing your delicious meal, you feel an overwhelming sense of guilt were you not to leave a tip. And you just know that if you don't, then you'll get the steamingly judgmental look from the waiter as you shamefully waddle out of the restaurant. It's the same look you would get if you broke into their home and replaced their toothpaste with cyanide. Maybe not quite the same. And there's one country that has made it their hobby to give away free money after their gigantic meals: America. The USA is by far the world's leader in tipping, leaving an astonishing $40 billion of tips on restaurant tables.
Dang. That's a lot when it comes to tip. That is a lot. That's why I say it depends on the restaurant too. Some people are some good tippers, but like I said, sometimes you just feel obligated to.
An astonishing $40 billion of tips on restaurant tables every year. But the ironic thing is that America imported the idea of tipping from Europe, where it has since fallen out of custom. In Europe, we usually tip as a convenience, to just round up the bill, because it's simply easier to leave a 2p tip than to count out £49.98 in change. Yes, I have left a 2p tip, and no, I'm not ashamed of that, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why. Journey back to 17th century Tudor England, where taverns began putting out jars labelled "to ensure promptitude," hence the word tip. When wealthier patrons put some of their extra money into the tip jar, the bartender would be sure to serve them before everyone else. By the mid-18th century, wealthy American businessmen who thought that adopting European traditions would make them more sophisticated brought back the idea of tipping to America and started to use it in their daily lives, tipping any old poor sod from the shoeshine boy to their driver. It wasn't long before the railway companies and many restaurants caught on to this new tipping phenomenon. And of course, their very first thought was, "Oh boy, we can use this to be even more racist. Yay!"
And to be honest, the restaurant industry took it and took over because the restaurant, like, I ain't gonna lie, there's some restaurants, they get customers and they can afford to pay their employers like at least a McDonald's with like $12, at least minimum wage. At least down here, minimum wage is still like I think $8, but they can afford it. But it's like, well, you should be banking off of tips. Like it's almost expected. But come on,
oh boy, we can use this to be even more racist. Yay! And so restaurant owners and railway operators all over America began hiring newly freed black slaves to work for no wage whatsoever, telling them that they would only get paid if they received tips from customers. So the business owners didn't have to fork out a single penny. The public were against this idea, and the unions campaigned against tipping, but of course the extremely wealthy railway companies and other corporations eventually won the battle, forever cementing tipping as a racist foundation of the American working class economy, and brainwashing future generations into heavily integrating gratuity as a social norm. Ah, the old American railroad. Wow. Tipping makes people feel powerful. Studies have shown that people enjoy the notion that they can control the level of service they receive because they can hold back tips if they don't receive said service. Which, if you think about it, it's slightly disturbing how sociopathic that makes most of us. We all secretly enjoy knowing that we can stop another human from being able to afford food if it takes our fancy. We probably wouldn't, but it's just nice to know we can.
That is true. Then it's almost like you really gotta be on your, like, I knew, of course you want to have good customer service skills and different things like that. I want to be kind to people and make sure everything is right for that customer. But sometimes it's a lot of pressure on you because sometimes you can have rude customers, or it can be somebody just having a day, and you know, I ain't gonna lie, a lot of people just come in expected just to pay for their meal and not tip. So being a waiter, waitress, it's a tough job because what you expect, what you got to deal with, especially, it's all about how you serve. And most people are going to, they're going to tip you a certain amount. But you can be the best server in the world. You probably still get like $3, you know? So, man, this is like a wide range question that could really propose a discussion for over hours.
You know? But the cold, raw, distasteful reality of restaurant gratuities is that the level of service doesn't matter. A surprisingly large number of studies and research papers have been done on tipping and why we do it. If you have a free afternoon instead of your usual self-loathing, give them a read, unless of course you're not me and you have some things to do. But they all essentially conclude the same result, that tipping behaviour is completely random. There is no logic to when and how much people tip. It is certainly not linked to good service.
And then gratuity, most restaurants, they will automatically charge gratuity if, let's say you have, I think it's like 8 or more people eating together. I think it's 8 or more. It just depends. Like, I think some of them just charge it automatically so they won't have to worry about it and stuff. But most of them, I know for sure it used to be at least 8+ people. But then some of them will take gratuity and it still expect a tip. It's crazy out here. It's crazy.
It's probably more closely correlated to a customer's shoe size, to be honest. Astonishingly, receiving good or bad service only changes the amount people tip, on average, from between -1% and +1%. So, there you go, all you waitstaff out there. You could literally slap your customers in the face with a ripe salmon. And the worst that would happen is you'll receive 50 pence fewer tips. And you thought you never learned anything useful from this channel. Waiter performance may not have any effect on tipping, but there are things that most certainly do have an effect. According to various studies, waitresses with larger breasts, smaller body sizes and blonde hair earn quite a bit more from tips than those without such features.
Facts. Think of Hooters. I'm sure those girls make some very good tips. You're going to be like Hooters. What's another one? Y'all know some other. Let me know some other ones out there. That are majority women working. I think another one maybe Twin Peaks or whatever. If it's majority women working, they probably banking. I ain't gonna lie. Like, A girl at Hooters probably making more money than a girl at Applebee's possibly or Chili's. The uniform just a little different. I'm not, and other guy, they probably tipping better at Hooters. I'm just saying.
Features as much as 50% more, and that's from both men and women. So it seems most of us mistake our local eatery for a frickin' strip club. Disturbingly, white servers are on average tipped more than black servers, regardless of the race of the customer. But not only is the average diner a racist perv, you'll be pleased to find out that they're also completely irrational. Woo! Research has shown that we leave a larger tip if a waiter touches us on the arm, draws a smiley face on our bill, if they wear red, or if they squat next to our table whilst taking our order like a restless ape. A modern habit that I find particularly annoying. The last thing I want when trying to relax is an overly smiley waiter squatting 2 centimeters from my actual face, and recommending I get a side of every damn thing on the menu with that. But hey, research shows that it seems to work for most people.
Funny.
And if
That's funny. I had waitresses and waiters do the exact same thing. It's funny because they almost like they are part of the family. Just what would you like? What would you have today?
you thought that waitress was being extra friendly towards you because they wanted a larger tip, or she found you unbearably attractive.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. This is what happens sometimes, especially when we go eat. Sometimes the waiter or waitresses, they'll give you a drink free. So you think you get a drink that's usually what, $2.50, $3, you know? If it's 4 people at the table and she give you those drinks free, she probably gonna expect that on the tip, you know? You got a free drink, go ahead and give me that tip, you know? Instead of me charging you $10, $15 extra dollars, hey, just leave me that tip. I'll take the tip. Here's
Then, my friend, you are delusional. There are a set of secret rules within the restaurant industry that everyone working in the food business quickly picks up. Rules about who tips and who doesn't, and who tips the most. Research shows that couples tip more than groups, men tip more than women, and businessmen tip even more. Waiters very quickly find out which demographics and table sizes leave the least and the most in tips, and they will adjust their service accordingly. Waiters will automatically pay more attention and give quicker and friendlier service to couples or businessmen, knowing full well that they're likely to leave larger tips than average. And they will lower their quality of service for large groups. I'm not saying that every waiter does
Sometimes
this,
they do.
but researchers found that the vast majority of restaurants admit that their waitstaff practice this very kind of favoritism towards higher tippers. So, before you even sit down, your level of service has been predetermined just because of how you're dressed and who you're with.
That's
just
true,
one more reason of many not to dine out naked. You can't blame waiters for this. When most of their income comes from tips, they are of course going to pull every trick in the book to milk every last penny out of the customers. So, who should we blame for everything wrong with the economic failure that is tipping? I'll give you 2 guesses. Your own mother? No. Rasputin? No. Why, the government, of course. In America, there are 2 variations of the minimum wage. The normal minimum wage that the majority of jobs receive, and then the tipped minimum wage, which employers are allowed to legally...
That's what I was making when I was a waiter. $2.13. I would get a $30 check. Depending on, of course, depending on the days I work, how long. Every 2 weeks, it'll be like $30. $30. I make good tips for the most part, but you know, when you see a check, you expect it to be more.
Pay their employees if they work in an industry where tips are accepted, such as servers, the hotel industry, taxi drivers, and just about 1,000 other professions, as it seems every year Americans like to play a game of who else can we possibly tip? Hairdressers? Yeah. Cleaners? Yeah. Drug dealer? Hitman? Why the hell not? Can we all just take a moment to realise how insane a tipped minimum wage is? Employers can legally pay their hard-working employees less than a third of the minimum wage, a measly $2.13 per hour in most states. And then customers are expected to pay the employees on the restaurant's behalf? Let me think. Last time I purchased a car, I didn't sit down for a budget meeting with the management afterwards to decide whether I would be contributing 20 or 25% towards the salesman's salary. But that is essentially what you're doing every time you tip in America, so long as the tipped minimum wage is a thing. Call me a maverick, but here's a crazy idea. Should it not be an employer's responsibility to pay their staff a decent living wage? Why should a customer who is already paying for their meal have to pay the staff's wages too? For an employee to legally qualify for the tipped minimum wage, they only have to earn $30 of tips per month. To put that into perspective,
a month? $30? That's
$30 of tips per month.
Wow.
To put that into perspective, in America, if I tip someone $30 who doesn't usually receive tips, say an electrician, their employer can then legally cut their wage that month from $7.25 per hour to $2.13 for every hour they have worked that month, just because I decided to be a generous sod. So, by tipping in restaurants,
I ain't gonna lie, I wouldn't even tell nobody I got that much until if they can go down on my salary. No way, Jose, no way.
Just because I decided to be a generous sod. So, by tipping in restaurants, Americans are ensuring that restaurant owners can legally pay their waiters pennies and get away with it. The problem is, every single American would have to stop tipping overnight to solve the issue. And that's like asking bears to stop shitting in the woods. Because just $30 of tips in any given month will prevent waiters from receiving a normal bloody wage. And that is, of course, never going to happen. So it is completely understandable why people who do stick to their morals and refuse to tip in America are seen as jerks and chased down the street with cake forks and steak knives, even if their morals do make perfect economic sense. Because, sadly, until the laws change, tipping is essential to allow waitstaff to actually feed themselves. But even when everyone tips, it's still a really bad deal for employees. Numerous studies have shown that servers are 3 times as likely to experience poverty than the average worker.
So that means we look at tipping as a good thing, you know, but really it's really a bad thing. Cause it's not helping. Like we would think it's helping because we put money in their pocket a little bit more than they, but it's really hurting them because that employer wherever they work, they could still take away their money, take away how much they make hourly, and take away that. I've seen people hours get cut. Like you see it all the time. Like especially if the restaurant not busy, just imagine getting paid $2.13 and you're only scheduled to work 2 days out the week. For a total of possibly 5 hours, 6 hours, and then possibly they probably letting you go home early during your shift because it's not too busy. Like that's
are
a lot.
3 times as likely to experience poverty than the average worker, and they are significantly more likely to make use of welfare programs to survive. Although this isn't as much of a problem in some states where the tipped minimum wage has been raised. The Department of Labor in the US investigated over 9,000 restaurants, and they found that 84% of restaurants in the states where the tipped minimum wage is $2.13 abused the tipped minimum wage to enable them to pay their waitstaff far less than any non-tipped employee. And yes, that is also accounting tips into their wages. But there is a poor group of victims of the tipping culture who get a far worse deal than the waitstaff, but unlike waiters, never get any recognition. Cooks. As a great lover of the culinary arts, I believe that in most countries, kitchen staff are underpaid. It's an extreme...
Hey, before I was a waiter, I was in the kitchen, then I went back to... I was in the kitchen, went to be a waiter, then went back to the kitchen because I went back to the restaurant that I worked at. But as for somebody that worked in the kitchen, I think I only got paid I got paid like a regular minimum wage for that, but definitely $15, $20 worth, $20 an hour type worth of work, because we had a line. There was a fryer, there was a grill, and there was like another flat top type of grill. So pretty much 3 stations. Once I had to do all that one time. And then when restaurants get super busy, it is super, super stressful. It is very, very stressful in the kitchen. And our hopes, like, everything is dependent on that waiter bringing back everything correctly, because they can come back and mess up somebody's order. Then the blame would be like, it's a lot, but definitely agree. Kitchen staff that's who deserves the tip. That's
extremely demanding and stressful job.
For sure.
Working fast-paced in high temperatures for long hours, and a high level of skill and training is required. But this problem of kitchen staff being underpaid is so many times worse in countries that have a tipping culture. For some reason, at one point in human history, I'm not sure when, but some people in a room decided that the people who have spent years of training at culinary school and who arrive early in the morning every morning to begin meticulously prepping every element of your dish, and then after many hours of mise en place, these line chefs can finally toil away at a hot stove for many hours to skillfully cook and beautifully plate your delicious dinner. Those people in a room, whoever they were, once decided for some ungodly reason that these hidden heroes of the restaurant industry should get paid 0% of the tips. Zilch, nada, bugger all. Yet this teenager with absolutely no training who picks up that dish and carries it 5 meters to your table should get 100% of your tips.
Crazy.
Well, that sounds a bit unfair.
Very, very
But
unfair.
unfortunately people don't...
But this is America. That's why everything's unfair.
Well, that sounds a bit unfair. But unfortunately people don't give a flying sausage, because the truth is we all tend to forget that kitchen staff exist. It's easy to go to a restaurant, and because you see all the pretty waitresses, you forget that there's an army of culinary gargoyles behind the kitchen shutters, and they're the reason you actually went to that restaurant, to eat their food. They say waitressing is a thankless job, but it's extremely rare that someone gives thanks to the person who just singed their eyebrows flambeing your tartare. There are some restaurants who recognise this disparity and collect all the tips and then share them out equally between the front of house and the back of house staff. But the vast majority of restaurants still distribute all their tips solely to the front of house staff. In certain US states, statistics show that with tips, waitstaff earn significantly more than kitchen staff. And not just the dishwasher,
that's a fact.
More than the sous chef and the head chef. In Seattle, for example, the average waiter earns $28 per hour with tips, whereas prep cooks and line chefs earn a pathetic $10 to $12 per hour.
I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think. That's crazy, because I know some people that could walk away with tips like $300-400 in a day. That's somebody 2 weeks check, and they can do that in a this. I didn't even think about it like that. Dang, that makes a lot of sense.
And the average head chef is just on $18 per hour. That's right, the individual with the highest amount of training, skill and expertise in the whole darn restaurant still only earns 64% of what the waiters do. I'm not trying to disparage waiters at all. They do an incredibly tough and important job. But there's an obvious difference in expertise between waiting and professional cooking. There has been a move in recent years by some example-setting restaurants, particularly in New York, to abolish tipping for good. Some restaurants now openly state that they no longer accept any tips, and instead add a 15 or 20% optional service charge to every bill, which is evenly distributed between all staff, including the kitchen staff.
That's nice.
There's a mysterious place that has been setting an even better example for as long as restaurants have existed. A place where food is the very embodiment of its culture. A country that has been awarded more Michelin stars than the UK and France combined. And a place where you can be served ramen by a maid. Where is this magical place, you ask? Of course, it is Japan. Not only is tipping not a part of Japanese culture, but tipping in Japan is actually seen as an insult. It's funny, if you want a waitress to spit in your food in North America, you forget to tip. Whereas in Japan, you'd have to do the complete opposite and actually tip to get some salival revenge. Not that the ultra-polite Japanese would ever stoop that low. If you did insult a Japanese chef, the worst that would probably happen is they would just give you a slightly less enthusiastic bow. Why is tipping in Japan so insulting? Because it is viewed by Japanese people as charity, rather than a reward for good service.
Right.
It can be seen as you implying that the restaurant isn't doing well enough.
I ain't gonna lie, I wouldn't mind getting tips, no problem at all, but that's interesting. I feel like that would be a cool case study type video, and tips Japanese waitress or something, or the cook, and just see their response. It might be a video out there. Y'all gotta let me know. It might already be a video out there. That's interesting. That's interesting.
It can be seen as you implying that the restaurant isn't doing well enough to pay their workers a proper salary. It's also construed that you may be marking them on their performance, and Japanese restaurant workers really don't like that, because they always believe that they are giving 100% effort. In Japanese culture, people don't just go to work and work tirelessly for money to buy more sushi and manga. They also do it for honour. A sense of honour for one's boss, for the workplace, and more importantly, for the customers, is a deeply held moral in Japan. So, if a Japanese waiter knowingly gave a customer bad service, then their honour would be impeached upon, which is punishment enough upon itself. A service charge is already included in the price of your meal in most restaurants in Japan, in the form of a seating charge called otoshi, literally meaning to pass. It's a small fee to pay for your table in the restaurant, and as a way to indirectly pay for service, taking the place of what tips.
I mean, other places already taking out for services and stuff, cause you can think about mechanics and stuff. You go get your car fixed or get something fixed on your car. You know, the part might be cheap, but you're paying for service mostly. You're going to pay that service.
In the Western world. But the nice thing about the otoshi fee over tipping is that you actually get something in return for your money. And no, it's not those wooden chopsticks that you impatiently snap apart as soon as you sit down. As a thank you for paying the seating fee, you get a small plate of food as soon as you are seated. Something to nibble upon whilst reading the menu, kind of like an amuse-bouche. It's usually a tasty little morsel such as edamame beans or some seafood. The fee for the otashi is automatically added to your bill, and then it's out of the way, forgotten about. You can enjoy your meal, say thank you, and leave. Instead of having to do mathematics after your meal to work out a tip, and if you're in a group, work out how to split that tip up, just creating awkwardness. Because no doubt everyone will want to tip a different amount, and you can guarantee that there will be one member of the group who's gotten so magnificently trolleyed that they already put their tip into some unfortunate waitress's garments. Or maybe I've just been hanging out with the wrong sort of people.
Possibly.
In fact, tipping isn't done across the whole of Asia. It's more of a Western, well, to be more specific, North American phenomenon. In Europe, waiters are paid living wages the same as any other profession. And on the continent, service charges are commonly added to bills to replace tips, similar to the Japanese otoshi system. In Italy, for example, you are often given complimentary bread or even a beverage to start your meal as part of the service charge. The Italians call this a caprese.
Most other restaurants do that, but sometimes they bread it could be some better bread sometimes.
Beverage to start your meal as part of the service charge. The Italians call this a coperto or servizio. There is just nothing good about tipping. In every aspect, it is futile, unfair. It promotes discrimination. It creates awkwardness for everyone involved. And the end result is customers pay more and staff earn less. It's about time we take a lesson from Asia and abolish this archaic practice of automatic tipping once and for all. Of course, there's nothing wrong with tipping on occasion.
At all.
If a particular person has gone out of their way to make your night truly special and memorable, Even I tip in those circumstances, just for those of you who now think I'm the most tight-fisted person in all of NATO. But tipping automatically, in the words of Mr. Pink, is for the birds. Thanks for watching. If this video has served you well, then consider...
I ain't gonna lie, I like this channel. I don't know who... Thoughtly 2, I'm guessing that's what it's called. But hey, I didn't even think about it that way, but to be honest, like I feel like he's right. Like tipping is hurting, especially what he said, only $30 in tips a month, and they can basically garnish your wages type thing. I feel like that's why the restaurant industry is doing what it's doing, paying their employees $2.13, because they know the rules, they know the laws. And I feel like as workers, we just want the job so bad that we don't know the law. We don't know what it's like. What if we refuse our tips? Then they will possibly have to pay us more. No, I didn't take no tips this week. I didn't take no tips this month. So you're going to have to pay me. You could possibly take somebody to court and be like, hey, I didn't take no tips this month. You should be paying me minimum wage, you know. But in America, people going to take their tips. I ain't going to lie, because like the chart he just showed, you still making more than the highest paid person that's getting a bigger check every 2 weeks daily, pretty much. But it just sounds like I still tip, you know, just because I've been there, done that, and I know how it feels type thing. But man, this brought my attention to some new things. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do you tip? You know, or is it not necessary? You don't have to, you know, because they already taking that out, and you know. But y'all let me know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. That's all I have for this video. Send me more recommendations, and y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.